Now, the Hunter Biden investigation, according to CNN, one of whose pundits later on said it was no big deal, according to CNN, it is intensifying.
First on CNN, federal investigators are reaching a critical decision point on whether or not to charge the president's son, Hunter Biden. Sources tell CNN no final decision has yet been made, but charges could include alleged tax violations and lying about buying a gun when he technically was not allowed to because of his acknowledged struggle with drug addiction. The case is being investigated by the U.S. attorney in Delaware, who was appointed by President Trump, and President Biden did not replace that U.S. attorney because of this.
Now, this is CNN. Notice no reference whatsoever to whether or not Joe Biden knew about Hunter Biden's business dealings. No mention of 10% for the big guy. No mention of Hunter Biden complaining to his family that I've got to give 50% of my money to my father. No reference to any of that at all.
Investigation. CNN's Kara Scannell and Evan Perez have details for us right now. Kara, let me start with you. Why do investigators need to decide soon on whether or not to charge Hunter Biden?
That's not the question. The question is, what took him so long? Can you imagine this had been Donald Trump Jr.? Are you kidding me?
Well, Jake, one factor that prosecutors are confronting is the midterm elections. And there are Justice Department guidelines about bringing any politically sensitive cases around an election. And those guidelines include things such as taking any sort of overt steps like an indictment or executing of a search warrant, anything that could be perceived as putting a thumb on the scale. They try to avoid that. So now current and former Justice Department officials say that that deadline is effectively 60 days before the election. So that implies that there could be a decision soon about what steps they want to take, or they could decide to wait until after the elections in November.
So she just now said that they don't want things to affect things that are politically sensitive. So the deadline is 60 days before the election, or they could wait until after the election, or they could not bring charges at all.
But Evan, President Biden, not to mention Hunter Biden, are not on the midterm ballot. Is there any indication that Attorney General Merrick Garland might buck this Justice Department norm, or that this wouldn't be included?
Well, you know,
Joe Biden's not on the ballot in the midterms. His policies are.
Jake, we know one thing about Merrick Garland is that he is going by the book, right? Everything he does is by the book. And in this case, you know.
One thing we know about Merrick Garland, he goes by the book, meaning we're really frustrated that Merrick Garland has not brought any charges against Donald Trump for the January 6th insurrection, because he won't.
As you pointed out, he's not Hunter Biden, and certainly Joe Biden's not on the ballot. But you know, we can look at previous years with congressional elections. For example, in 2018, we know that the Justice Department brought cases in August of that year against Michael Cohen, who was the former president's personal attorney.
They didn't seem to give a damn about bringing charges against Trump, people in the Trump world, did they?
As well as Chris Collins, who was a prominent supporter of the former president. He was on the ballot that year. So there's a lot of factors that these prosecutors are going to have to consider, including, of course, that looming is the next year. The Republicans already say that if they take over the House, they're going to do investigations. They're going to do hearings about Hunter Biden. So those are all things that are worth considering for prosecutors in the next few weeks.
And Kara, the investigation started off pretty broadly, including possible money.
So when and if the Republicans take over the House in November, they're going to have investigations into Hunter Biden. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on the DOJ to do something before those hearings take place, because it is obvious he's broken many laws. It is also obvious that Joe Biden lied when he told the nation he knew absolutely nothing about his son's business dealings.
Money laundering, campaign finance, and foreign lobbying violations. It seems like investigators have narrowed it down.
Yeah, Jake, so sources tell us.
Why aren't you asking what took so long? You remember when the Hunter Biden story first broke? Right before the election? Over 50 former intelligence officials signed a letter saying it had all the hallmarks of Russian disinformation. Oops, it wasn't Russian disinformation.
And I that the investigators now are focusing their focus on looking into possible tax charges and also possible false.
And by the way, there's evidence that Joe Biden, Hunter Biden commingled their money. So a tax violation for Hunter Biden might also mean a tax violation for Joe Biden, but they don't go there.
Statements related to the purchase of a firearm by Hunter Biden. Now, this is still a fluid situation and no final charging decision has been made, but it's fairly common for investigators to look broadly at something and then focus on what their best evidence is and what they can.
One more time, can you imagine if this had been any of the Trump children? Are you kidding me?
Prove before a jury. So, this is still something that is being discussed among the Justice Department officials, but our sources tell us they are nearing a decision. Now, Hunter Biden, we should note, has, not been accused of any wrongdoing, and he has denied any wrongdoing, saying that he thinks once the investigation is over, he will not be charged with anything.
And also, Hunter Biden is the smartest guy I know, according to Joe Biden. So, now, one of their pundits is a guy named Paul Begala. He used to work in the Clinton administration. And of course, he says, this is much ado about nothing.
I mean, I wish the guy well. He struggled with addiction nobody has charged him with anything. But this has been a Republican fixation to no avail. They've got no political gain out of this.
This has been a Republican fixation. This is Merrick Garland, the Democrat-appointed AG, doing the investigation. This is the DOJ, this is the FBI doing the investigation, and he immediately dismisses it as a Republican fixation.
I looked up Ron Johnson, the senator from Wisconsin, a couple of months ago, was asked about mass shootings, which you just interviewed Congressman Krishnamurthy about. He said this, quote, "Before we pass anything new on guns, let's enforce the law we already have. Let's start with Hunter Biden." Like, what the heck? So it's a challenge for Hunter Biden. I wish him well, but it's not going to be a political issue.
See that? The only reason the Hunter Biden thing is in the newspapers, is in the headlines, says Paul Begala, who used to work for Bill Clinton. Did I mention that earlier? Is because it's a Republican fixation. No, it's because, can you imagine one more time if this had been Donald Trump Jr. and all this overseas business dealing? And they got him saying 10% for the big guy, referring to Donald Trump, and complaining about he has to give half his money to Donald Trump, and Donald Trump denied he had any idea what Donald Trump Jr. was doing. These guys would be marching on Washington. Everybody would be wearing one of the little green bandanas that Ilhan Omar and AOC just now wore. And don't forget, Tony Bobulinski, the former partner of Hunter Biden, says Joe knew all about it.
I'm making this statement to set the record straight about the involvement of the Biden family, Vice President Biden, his brother Jim Biden, and his son Hunter Biden in dealings with the Chinese. I've heard Joe Biden say that he's never discussed business with Hunter.
This is relevant. I've heard Joe Biden say he's never discussed business with Hunter.
That is false. I have firsthand knowledge about this because I directly dealt with the Biden family, including Joe Biden.
CNN, are you watching any of this?
I have also heard that Vice President
Republican fixation.
Biden said on Tuesday that Senator Ron Johnson.
And by the way, this guy is not a Republican. I believe he said that he's given donations in the past. Donations in the past he's given have been small, and they were to Democrats.
The chair of the Senate Homeland Security Committee should be ashamed for suggesting that Biden family sought to profit from their name. Well, here are the facts I know, and everything I'm saying is corroborated by emails, WhatsApp chats, agreements, documents, and other evidence. And the American people can judge for themselves. I brought, I guess, for record, 3 phones that spanned the years 2015 through 2018.
Now, if you watch CNN, MSNBC, if they're your primary sources, if you watch the late night stand-up monologues, you won't even know this man even exists, let alone that he used to be a close associate with Hunter Biden, let alone that he was in meetings with Joe Biden, let alone that he says Joe knew all about Hunter's, at least his Chinese overseas dealings. You wouldn't even know who this guy is.
These phones have never been held by anybody else besides myself. I was told this past Sunday by somebody who was also involved in this matter that if I went public this information, it would bury all of us, man. The Bidens included. I have no wish to bury anyone. I've never been political. The few contributions I have made have been to Democrats.
What? I thought it was Republican fixation.
But what I am is a patriot and a veteran.
Now, we come back. Gavin Newsom? Are you kidding me? I want to remind you the reason Joe Biden became the nominee is because Bernie Sanders won the Nevada caucuses, a self-described Democrat socialist, and the Democrats knew he was way too left-wing for the country. But Gavin Newsom is better? Now hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Remember, we post new shows every single day. I'll be right back. Hope you enjoyed that video. The full show is available to watch right now on Epoch TV. Just click the link in the description below to learn more, because we've got a country to save.